Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. It started with something so small, something I didn't even think twice about at first, just a glance that lingered a little too long across the kitchen counter. His eyes caught mine, and for a moment, it felt like time paused. There was something playful in the way he looked at me, something warm, as if a secret passed between us without a single word. I smiled back, maybe holding it a little longer than I usually would, and that was the spark that changed everything. The evening was quiet, the kind where the house feels too still, yet every sound seems louder than it should be. A faint hum of the refrigerator, the soft clink of glasses, and the dim golden light spilling over the counters, it all added to the atmosphere, wrapping us in a bubble of calmness and anticipation. My husband sat close, his hand brushing mine when he reached for his drink. Normally, it would have been just another gesture, but this time it carried weight, a kind of closeness that stirred something inside me. He thought he had taken his usual vitamin, the little tablet he swallowed without much thought. I watched him do it absent-mindedly, never imagining that what he had really taken would lead us down a completely different path tonight. At first, I only noticed his smile softening, his laughter lingering longer than usual. Then came the way he leaned in, brushing his shoulder against mine as if he couldn't get enough of being near me. There was a shift in his presence, subtle but undeniable. His eyes followed me every time I moved, and when I sat beside him, he pulled me closer without hesitation. I could feel the warmth of his breath against my skin, his voice lower, filled with something heavier than casual conversation. My heart began to race, my body responding before my mind could catch up. He whispered that he wanted me, not once, but again and again, each time with more urgency. And I couldn't ignore it, the way he held me tighter, the way his touch grew more insistent, his desire impossible to mistake. I knew then that tonight wouldn't end in the usual way. Something stronger had taken hold, something neither of us had expected. I hesitated, my mind caught between surprise and temptation, but as his hands slid around me and his lips brushed my ear, I felt the moment tipping towards something inevitable. I lay back slowly, my heart racing, the air between us thick with heat and unspoken promise, knowing this was only the beginning. I didn't plan for the night to take this turn. It was supposed to be simple, dinner, a little conversation, and then slipping into bed early. But the way his hand brushed against mine when he reached for the glass sent a jolt straight through me. It wasn't an accident, it lingered, his fingers curling slightly as if he didn't want to let go. I glanced up, half ready to tease him, but stopped when I saw his expression. His eyes weren't casual anymore. They were locked on me, deep, steady, almost searching. I felt heat creep up my neck, and to cover it, I laughed softly. "What's gotten into you tonight?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. He smirked, leaning closer until our shoulders touched. "I don't know. Maybe it's just you." His tone was playful, but his eyes gave him away. There was no joke in the way he looked at me. My pulse quickened. I turned away, pretending to busy myself with straightening the napkins, but I couldn't ignore how close he stood, how his presence filled the space around me. Every time I shifted, he matched me, closing the gap until I could feel the warmth radiating off him. I told myself to stay calm, to keep things ordinary, but then came another little slip, his hand brushing mine again, slower this time. Our fingers grazed, and neither of us pulled away. The silence stretched, heavy with something neither of us wanted to admit. He broke it with a low chuckle. "You're not running from me tonight, are you?" I tilted my head, forcing a playful smile. "Who said I was running?" It was a dangerous reply, and we both knew it. His grin widened as if he'd won some secret game, but beneath it, I caught the same hesitation I felt, wanting, but cautious. For a moment, neither of us moved. Just the sound of our breathing, the quiet hum of the house, and the thrum of tension building between us. I could feel my resolve slipping, his closeness undoing me piece by piece. Then it happened, small, but enough to change everything. He reached out, gently tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. His fingers brushed my cheek, lingering there just a second too long. My breath caught, and I knew he felt it too, the shift, the inevitability of what was coming. I looked up into his eyes, and for a heartbeat, neither of us said a word. But in that silence, everything was clear. We wanted more. And this was only the beginning. The closer he stood, the harder it became to pretend. I could feel the warmth of his body next to mine, his shoulder brushing mine every time I shifted, his voice dipping low like he was speaking only for me. It wasn't just the room that felt smaller, it was the way my chest tightened, the way my thoughts tangled between wanting him and telling myself I shouldn't. I stared at the countertop, tracing the rim of a glass with my finger, but I couldn't ignore his eyes on me. When I finally looked up, he was already watching. That gaze, steady, unblinking, made my pulse stumble. It was dangerous, intoxicating, and yet I couldn't look away. "Why are you looking at me like that?" I whispered, though part of me already knew. He tilted his head, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Maybe I just can't help it." The words struck deeper than they should have. My heart thudded harder, and I tried to laugh it off, but the sound came out thin, nervous. His hand brushed mine again, an accident, maybe, but this time his fingers lingered, tracing the edge of my palm as though testing how far he could go. I pulled back slightly, my voice shaky. "You're not yourself tonight." "Maybe this is me," he replied softly, his tone carrying something I hadn't heard in a long time, a raw honesty that melted my defenses. I wanted to resist, to remind myself of the lines we shouldn't cross, but the truth was undeniable. My body leaned toward him even as my mind whispered warnings. Every brush of his hand, every flicker in his eyes, pulled me deeper into a gravity I couldn't escape. The silence between us grew heavier, filled with words neither of us dared to speak. His breath touched my cheek, warm and inviting, and I found myself holding still, as if waiting. The kitchen lights glowed faintly around us, throwing soft shadows that made the moment feel stolen, hidden, secret. My heart screamed at me to stop, but my body betrayed me, trembling at his nearness. He lifted his hands slowly, his fingers grazing my jaw, tilting my face up toward his. My breath hitched. And just when I thought he would close the gap, when his lips hovered close enough for me to feel the heat of them, he stopped. The air froze between us. Neither of us moved, locked in a moment that teetered on the edge of everything we both wanted and everything we feared. The house was quiet, too quiet, as if it knew what was happening between us. The sound of my heartbeat filled my ears, each thud echoing louder than it should. He hadn't stepped back after stopping himself. Instead, he stayed close, too close, his hands still hovering near my jaw, his body radiating warmth against mine. I tried to steady my breath, but it came out shallow, uneven. He noticed, I could tell by the way his lips curled into a faint, knowing smile. That smile alone sent shivers racing down my spine. "This feels dangerous," I whispered, my voice barely audible. He chuckled softly, the sound low and rich. "Then why aren't you moving away?" I swallowed hard, not having an answer. Instead, I laughed nervously, the sound catching in my throat. My hands fidgeted on the counter, searching for something solid, something normal. But then his fingers brushed over mine again, slow, deliberate this time. My laughter faded. I froze, caught in the gravity of the moment. We stood in silence, and yet it wasn't empty. The silence was thick, alive with the heat of everything unspoken. His breath grazed my cheek, steady but heavy, and I realized mine matched his rhythm, both of us suspended in the same anticipation. I dared to look up, and our eyes collided. That look, it wasn't playful anymore. It was raw, open, undeniable. I could feel my resistance crumble. My chest tightened, every nerve awake, aching for what was just out of reach. He leaned closer, his forehead brushing against mine. The softest touch, but it sent a spark straight through me. My lips parted on instinct, ready to close the distance, but he held still, teasing the edge of a kiss that wasn't yet given. I shouldn't, I breathed. Neither should I, he answered, his voice husky, trembling with the same conflict tearing me apart. We laughed softly together, the sound strained with nerves, with desire, with the knowledge that we were standing at the edge of something irreversible. My fingers tightened around his as if to anchor myself, but it only pulled him nearer. The world outside that kitchen disappeared. All I knew was him, his nearness, his warmth, the quiet intensity in his eyes. His nose brushed mine lightly, and I felt his breath mingle with mine. My heart was pounding so hard, I was sure he could feel it. Then came the pause, the unbearable, perfect pause, just before lips would meet. We hovered there, trembling, lost in the pull, seconds away from crossing the line neither of us could return from. And then, it stopped. The moment froze, the air thick, the desire left hanging, burning for what would come next. The pause between us still hung heavy, our lips a breath apart, when the faint creak of the hallway floor made me jump. My heart lurched into my throat. We froze, instinctively pulling back, though not far enough to erase the tension that bound us. For a second, I was sure someone else was in the house, someone watching. Did you hear that? I whispered, my pulse racing faster than before. He glanced over his shoulder, his jaw tight, before shaking his head. Probably nothing, but it feels like we're being caught even when we're not. His words sent a strange thrill through me. The secrecy, the risk, only sharpened the heat already simmering between us. My hands trembled as I clutched the counter, trying to steady myself. But when his fingers slipped over mine again, that steady anchor turned into a flame I couldn't resist. I tried to remind myself of the reasons to stop, the rules, the promises, the lines we'd drawn so carefully in our lives. But all of it blurred in the face of what I felt now. His presence, his eyes, the way he said my name so softly, it all drowned out reason. Someone could find out, I murmured, though my voice lacked conviction. Then let them, he whispered back, leaning closer, his breath warm against my skin. I can't fight this anymore. My body betrayed me before my mind could argue. I leaned into him, my chest brushing his, every inch of me trembling with a mix of fear and longing. His hands slid to my waist, gripping me as if he'd lose me if he didn't hold tight. I gasped, nerves sparking alive, but I didn't pull away. I couldn't. The silence was no longer empty, it roared between us, louder than any sound, demanding release. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. His thumb brushed the edge of my hip, and I shivered, closing my eyes against the wave of desire that nearly drowned me. He tilted my chin upward, his voice low, ragged. Tell me to stop, if you really want me to. But I didn't. I couldn't. My lips trembled, parting with a breath I couldn't control, and in that silence, I gave my answer without words. The risk made it intoxicating. The chance of being discovered, the truth that we shouldn't, but did anyway, turned every heartbeat into fire. My laugh came out soft, nervous, but his answered with a growl low in his throat, pulling me tighter, closer. And then the moment snapped. All the hesitation, all the careful pauses, gone. We gave in, bodies colliding with a hunger we could no longer deny. His lips crashed against mine, desperate, claiming, and I melted into him with the same force. There was no going back now. The kiss deepened like a floodgate breaking. All the pauses, the stolen glances, the whispered hesitations, they all rushed out in a wave that neither of us could contain anymore. His lips moved against mine with hunger, but beneath it was something else, something tender, almost desperate. It wasn't just desire. It was longing. My hands clutched at his shirt, pulling him closer as if I'd waited years for this moment. His arms wrapped around me, strong and unyielding, lifting me slightly against him. The world blurred. The hum of the fridge, the faint light in the kitchen, the silence of the night, it all disappeared under the sound of our ragged breaths. Between kisses, I whispered, "We can't, we shouldn't," but my voice trembled with betrayal, because even as I said the words, I pressed closer, craving more. He pulled back just enough to look into my eyes, his forehead resting against mine. His voice was hoarse, thick with emotion. "Then tell me to stop." I couldn't. The truth burned too hot inside me. Instead, I whispered, "Don't." That single word changed everything. He kissed me again, slower this time, almost reverent, as if he wanted to memorize the shape of my lips, the taste of my breath. The passion was fierce, but the tenderness underneath unraveled me even more. I had thought this was only about the pull of bodies, the gravity of attraction we'd fought for too long. But here, in his arms, I realized it was bigger than that. This wasn't only lust, it was something deeper, something that made my heart ache even as my body burned. And then came the twist I didn't expect. As he held me tighter, he whispered words that stopped my breath. "I don't just want you tonight. I've wanted you every night. I just didn't know how to tell you." I froze, my chest tight, my heart hammering harder than before. This wasn't only a moment of surrender, it was a confession, a choice hanging between us. The weight of it made the passion sharper, more dangerous, more real. We were no longer just giving in to desire, we were crossing into something irreversible, something that could change us forever. I kissed him again, fiercely, knowing there was no turning back. The line was gone, erased by everything we'd just unleashed. And as his hands tangled in my hair, pulling me closer, I knew this wasn't just a climax of bodies, it was the breaking open of hearts. There was no hiding anymore. The storm of passion slowly eased, leaving us tangled in each other's arms, breathing hard, hearts still pounding like drums in the silence of the kitchen. His forehead rested against mine, our lips brushing with every shaky breath, as though neither of us wanted to let go of the closeness we had finally given into. The weight of what had just happened settled between us, not heavy with regret, but charged with something deeper. I expected guilt to flood me, but instead, I felt a strange calmness, as if this moment had been waiting for us all along. He brushed his thumb gently over my cheek, his voice softer now, almost fragile. "I don't think I can ever pretend again. Not after this." My chest tightened at his words. I searched his eyes, expecting to see the wild heat that had consumed us moments ago, but what I found instead was something far stronger, devotion. Real, unshakable devotion. For a while, neither of us spoke. We just stayed there, holding on as though the world outside no longer existed. His arms were still firm around me, my hands still clutching the fabric of his shirt, unwilling to loosen my grip. The night had changed us. We both knew it. Finally, I whispered, "We can't go back, can we?" He smiled faintly, shaking his head. "No. And honestly, I don't want to." His words sank deep into me, erasing the last of my doubt. I leaned into him, letting the comfort of his embrace wash over me. Our kiss this time was slower, sweeter, not driven by urgency, but by the quiet promise of something lasting. It felt like sealing a vow, one that went beyond the heat of desire. The air around us softened, the silence no longer tense but warm, tender. I realized then that the passion wasn't the end of our story, it was the beginning of something new, something neither of us had expected but both of us needed. When he finally pulled back, his forehead still pressed against mine, he whispered, "I love you." And just like that, the world stopped again, only this time it wasn't because of temptation or risk. It was because everything that mattered was right there in his arms. I smiled, tears stinging my eyes, and whispered back, "I love you too." The moment wasn't just about passion anymore. It was about us, about what we found, about what we chose. And that was the memory I knew would stay with me forever.